The man was about to go swimming when he discovered several people bathing in the sea, one of them even washing her hair with shampoo. Pete was instantly stunned by the beauty of the hair-washing woman. In his entire life he had never seen such a beautiful woman. The woman was named Sophie. Seeing that this man had been staring for so long as if he wanted to devour her, she had no choice but to dive underwater and swim away. Yet Pete still lingered on the shore for a long time, unwilling to leave, as if he could still smell the scent of the woman's shampoo. Pete felt a bit regretful that he had not chased after her to ask for a phone number. After returning home, the more he thought, the more uncomfortable he felt. Perhaps he had missed his destined goddess. Pete gulped down a bottle of strong liquor and in a daze remembered his own wife. Because he had dozed off while driving, it caused a car accident and his wife and daughter died on the spot. In order to escape the pursuit of his father-in-law's family, Pete had come to this deep mountain to live in seclusion, yet he never expected that in this remote forest there would still be such a gorgeous woman. Pete, who had not slept well the whole night, early in the morning heard a woman's crying. Pete followed the sound and felt it was coming from this abandoned cart. Just as Pete was puzzled, a woman jumped out of the cart looking very angry, as if Pete had offended her. Pete recognized her at a glance. This was the dream goddess who had been washing her hair in the sea yesterday. The goddess's whole body was trembling. It seemed she had low blood sugar. Pete asked with concern and Sophie said she was very hungry and needed to eat something. Without a word, Pete dashed to the nearby supermarket, bought some snacks and quickly returned, yet he did not see Sophie's figure. A black hat was left on the door handle. Pete put the hat away and the longing for Sophie in his heart deepened a few more degrees. Missing someone is the most painful. Pete went to the seaside every day, waiting from early morning until sunset just to see Sophie again, hoping Sophie would come to the sea to wash her hair once more. Heaven truly does not disappoint those with a heart, and Pete finally waited for her. Yet Sophie only passed by walking in a great hurry with two men following her. They seemed to be arguing. Pete could not figure out the situation and dared not rashly step forward, so he could only return home extremely disappointed. That whole night Pete could not sleep, his mind filled with Sophie's charming figure. The next day when Pete went to the seaside, he had to pass through a small forest and unexpectedly ran into Sophie in that small forest. The two people who had followed behind Sophie at the seaside that day were Sophie's father and younger brother. Pete said Sophie's hat was still at his house. Sophie said she wanted to go get it back, yet the moment Sophie entered Pete's house she walked into the bedroom and fell asleep. This made it look as if she were in her own home. Pete brought the hat to her, yet she did not want to leave. She asked Pete if he had a girlfriend and wanted to live here from now on. Pete felt this was not appropriate, so he refused Sophie and told her to take the hat and hurry back. Yet Sophie's behavior was extremely direct. The moment Pete turned around, he saw a scene he would never forget for the rest of his life. This was simply too beautiful, yet Pete dared not believe such a good thing, so he immediately pulled down the tablecloth, wrapped Sophie up and told her to put on her clothes and leave quickly. Sophie cried on the spot, saying that the first time she saw Pete at the seaside she had fallen in love with him, so she wanted to become Pete's woman as soon as possible. Pete was deeply moved in his heart and could only gently hold Sophie in his arms, saying Sophie was too good, that a wreck of an old man like himself did not deserve her and that she deserved a younger and better man. Pete put the clothes on Sophie and heartlessly pushed Sophie out the door. Yet the moment Sophie left, Jack's body became uncontrollable. Burning like fire, he could only jump into the icy seawater and soak for a full 2 hours before suppressing his love for the goddess. Pete calmly returned home, yet ran into the neighbor lady. It turned out the neighbor lady's husband had been dead for more than 10 years and she had always wanted a man at home, finally waiting for one. The neighbor lady liked Pete very much and said she could come wash clothes and cook for Pete, yet Pete said his wife and daughter had only recently passed away and he did not want to talk about love yet. But the neighbor lady refused to give up such a high quality man, so she insisted on staying and insisted on going to wash the dishes. Pete wanted to stop her, yet accidentally smashed the cup in the neighbor lady's hand. The neighbor lady's hand was cut with a gash and blood flowed freely. Pete could only bandage the neighbor lady's wound and tell her to go home and rest. Just as the neighbor lady was preparing to leave, she saw Sophie arrive. This time Sophie was also very direct, saying she wanted to be Pete's girlfriend. Pete was about to refuse, yet saw that the neighbor lady had not gone far. In order to make the neighbor lady give up, Pete agreed to Sophie, saying they could try dating for a few days. The neighbor lady's face instantly turned black and she could only leave dejectedly. The moment the neighbor lady left, Pete said, "I only agreed to you just now to get rid of the neighbor lady." Yet Sophie did not want to hear these explanations. Agreeing was agreeing, so dating would start right now. Sophie pulled Pete asham. Sophie was after all young and her physical strength was much better than Pete's. Before long, Pete could no longer keep up and could only watch Sophie's long legs from behind, unable to catch up no matter how hard he chased. A person really cannot refuse to admit old age. When Pete climbed to the mountaintop panting, Sophie had already been waiting for him for half an hour. Pete was still a careful man and immediately peeled an orange for Sophie, yet this orange was too sour and made Sophie's tears flow. Pete carefully wiped Sophie's tears dry and Sophie also felt Pete's warmth, not wanting Pete's hand to leave. After the two stayed for a while, they went down the mountain. Sophie suddenly walked into the grass and swatted down. Pete did not know what Sophie was going to do and could only watch from a distance. The two's eyes became ambiguous and they naturally kissed each other. Love arrived just like this, and Pete also decided not to think so much anymore, so let's have a passionate love affair. Because Sophie's father and younger brother were looking for her, Sophie did not want to be discovered, so she walked very fast. Pete behind simply could not catch up. After all, he was older and his physical strength was not good. He did not catch the person and exhausted himself to the point of vomiting and diarrhea, looking completely miserable. After Pete returned home, he immediately packed his luggage because he knew Sophie's father would definitely not agree, so he prepared to elope with Sophie. Yet while Pete was packing the luggage, Sophie's father Martin came, saying that his neighbor neighbors for some days. He wanted to invite Pete to his home for a meal. Pete's heart panicked badly, thinking that his relationship with Sophie had been exposed, yet actually Martin simply wanted to treat a guest and did not mention any other matters. The dinner was quite rich. Sophie had never dated a boyfriend before, so just falling into love, she still could not suppress the excitement in her heart, which showed while Sophie was talking with her father. Actually, those restless little feet were already hooking Pete's legs under the dining table. Pete also felt Sophie's little movements and was scared to death in his heart. If discovered by Martin, he would definitely be beaten up. So the moment the meal finished, Pete immediately ran back home. Early the next morning, Sophie, like a happy little bird, ran into Pete's house. Sophie did not want to say anything extra and directly threw herself into Pete's arms. The two stayed upstairs for more than 3 hours and Pete felt extremely happy. After Sophie rested well, she was about to leave, yet happened to run into the neighbor lady who had come to wash clothes and cook. The neighbor lady saw Anna looking radiant and was instantly shocked with eyes wide open. How in just a few short days had this woman stolen the man she liked? The neighbor lady's heart was about to break. A while later, Martin hurried over. It turned out the younger son was missing. He had already searched for a whole night, so he wanted to ask Pete to help look together. The two searched the entire nearby area and even went up the mountain to search, yet 3 days passed and they still had not found the younger son Tommy. Pete was truly tired from searching, so he bathed in the lake, planning to rest well before continuing the search. At that moment, Sophie also ran over, jumped into the lake and played with Pete. The two were extremely happy in the lake like two carefree little ducks. Temporarily setting aside the matter of Tommy getting lost, Pete and Sophie agreed that after finding Tommy, the two would elope, go to a place with no one and live a happy world of just the two of them. Yet right at that moment, Martin and the police happened to search here and saw the two intimately holding each other. Sophie was greatly startled, immediately put on her clothes and ran. Martin instantly flew into a rage. The younger son had not been found, yet this older daughter was together with this old bastard. Truly a misfortune for the family. The angry Martin picked up things beside him and wildly beat Pete, wanting to beat this shameless old thing to death. The two fought while running and finally fought into Pete's wooden cabin. Yet the moment they entered, they saw a wild monkey inside the house, not knowing when it had run in. Martin was now attacking indiscriminately, knocked the monkey to the ground, then continued wrestling with Pete. Yet this monkey was not one to be trifled with either. It angrily pounced at Martin and fiercely bit Martin's throat. Blood sprayed out and Martin soon collapsed, unable to get up. Sophie and the police rushed over and also called an ambulance. Martin was carried onto the vehicle for emergency treatment. Sophie looked at the father who protected her, then looked at the miserable Pete and instantly fell into a dilemma, yet in the end Sophie still followed the ambulance and left this place together. This stretch of love at first sight from the seaside finally ended with such a tragic conclusion. It seems they truly had fate but no destiny. Pete returned to the wooden cabin, held the dead monkey in his arms, and this man and monkey stayed quietly for a long time. Pete kept crying sadly. "You were born when I was not yet born. I was born when you were already old. You hate that I was born late. I hate that you were born early. I hate that we were not born at the same time so I could be with you every day."